Okay, we are live, but let's give us a couple of seconds to see.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the channel. Okay.
I'm gonna make sure that it's actually going, but yeah.
Welcome to the channel. Oh, I hear myself.
There it is.
It started. Okay, so we have 3 lovely viewers right now, but hello guys, my name is Lisa and I am obviously from Remarkably Lisa because you guys are on my channel, but welcome to the Historical Romance live show where we have 2 very special guests today, including one of our, well, actually I have a host too as well, so it's Rachel. Rachel, go ahead.
Hey everyone, I'm Rachel from Rachelreadsandsings here on YouTube. And I'm super excited to be here. I'm even wearing like a romance t-shirt, ghosting you for romance books. So I'm very excited about this author hangout today. And Lenora, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Hi, I'm Lenora Bell, and I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me and Eva, Lisa, and Rachel. I've actually done one other live with Lisa before, and it was so much fun. I was tuning in from New Zealand then, but now I'm tuning in from small town, rural Alaska.
I know.
And I am here to celebrate the release of my latest historical romance, Duke Most Wicked. And it has this lovely glittery foil, love it. And it is a light and steamy rom-com about a, yeah, you guessed it, a naughty Duke and his music instructor. So the woman that's going to bring him to his knees has sort of been in his household this whole time, but he's been oblivious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those oblivious dukes, what do they know?
Exactly.
They don't understand love. What's love?
They'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm Eva Leigh, and I'm here to celebrate, as Lenora said, celebrate my new book, which is How the Wallflower Was Won, which is book number 2 in the Last Chance Scoundrels series. My books have a very high steam quotient. They usually have a lot of like very strong women and the heroes who will do anything to support them. And this story is a marriage of convenience between a professional gambler who has to get married in order to secure his inheritance and a blue stocking, which is a female intellectual. And she wants to join an intellectual society, which won't admit female members, but they may if they're married. So that's when they engage and they decide they're going to do a marriage of convenience on the caveat that there's going to be no feelings involved. But as we know, feelings, not just the pants kinds of feelings, but other kinds of feelings get involved as well.
That was a good one. That was a good one. Just wanted to say that, so I mentioned this already in our private group chat, but like Rachel and I both read your books and we like loved it. I pre-ordered both of your books on Audible, so I knew like I could get it right away as soon as it dropped the release so that I could start listening to audiobooks. And of course, like, I don't know if you guys know this, well, Lenora knows this, but Eva, like I've read the first book in the series too as well, and I read this book and I loved it, and I've started reading, like I'm working my way through your backlist, and I'm gonna have like plans to like read all of your books because I just fell in love with your writing and your steam factor. It's just so good. And you guys mentioned that you guys write really strong female characters, which I think both of you do an amazing job at representing heroines who like do the careers, right? Like has those amazing careers that we typically don't see in other older historical romances.
Yes, absolutely. So I've read, Eva, I've read your last series, and then I've been keeping up with this series so far. And I think I've given most of them like 5 stars now that I'm thinking about it.
Thank you.
But yeah, I especially love your current series right now. Is it the Last Chance Scoundrels? Is that what it is?
That's the Last Chance Scoundrels. This is book number 1 was The Good Girl's Guide to Rakes.
Yes.
And then book number 2, as I flashed before, is How the Wallflower Was Won. And yeah, they're sitting on a dining table because that's a critical scene that happens.
Yes. Yes. I love when the cover, and both of your books do this, when the cover actually represents something that happens in the book, right? And I also love that both of you are still getting clinch covers, like stunning, beautiful clinch covers. I am a huge advocate for that. You know, absolutely.
Yeah. Lenora's covers are fantastic. Every time they come out, I'm always like, yay!
Yes.
That leads like an interesting question, but like, do you guys? Obviously, you guys put input into the cover development. So how was the input for your new books, like your new covers?
Well, I mean, for this one, I asked them. I said I wanted a Hemsworth brother Duke.
Yeah.
We
see it. We see it.
Yes.
They nailed it. Yeah.
They nailed that one.
And, you know, Viola had kind of lighter hair, but that's just a minor little quibble. So we can't, you know, I love this this model. Her name is, in real life, her name is Nina Jade Napolitano. And she contacted me on Instagram and said, I'm on your cover and I love this cover and it's my favorite cover I've ever been on. And will you send me a copy? I was like, of course I will send you. That's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah, so I just mailed her copy off the other day. But in terms of input, Eva will confirm that they do send us sort of modeling shots, and we get to kind of pick which models we want to portray the characters, and we get to sort of give them input about what poses to use, the color scheme, and that type of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was funny because for the How the Wallflower was the cover model for this. Her name is Gaëlle Massicote. I think that's how she pronounces her name. Forgive me if I pronounce it incorrectly. She contacted me also on Instagram, and she said that she was on this cover and she had a really good time doing it. And she had done, she sent me some things where she'd done a lot of Amish romances, which is like I was like, okay, this is the complete opposite of that. So they let me pick headshots, which was really nice. But the funny thing about this cover was that I didn't pick the models for this cover. They were, I gave them ideas for the suggestions, but as somebody pointed out, I think the male model is the same, which is funny,
they're
because
brothers.
They're brothers. Exactly. So I was like, okay, all right. That's all right. I've
maybe
actually
they thought about it. No, I don't.
That?
Maybe they knew that they were planning it.
In their head. So,
but you already have a cover. You already have a cover for the third one in that series, don't you, Eva?
I just saw on Goodreads.
I do. That's the cover for the third book in the series, and I'm actually the cover model that they got for the hero for that one. I had always had in my head. I'd sort of pictured like a supersized Tom Hardy, but the model that they got for that cover actually is much more accurate in my mind in terms of who he was. And I let the model know on Instagram because I saw he had an Instagram account. I'm like, oh, hey, you're on the cover. And he did a very funny post about it a couple of weeks ago because I have been touting this book for a while, including the proportions of this particular hero. So he thought that was pretty funny. So it's been actually I've been really happy. I'm like all of my Avon covers have been really great, and they do let me give some input, which is really nice because sometimes you get what you get. But I think Lenora and I think I don't know if I speak for you, but I think I've been pretty happy with the covers that I've been getting. They're really pretty, and and they've got the clinches on it, which is nice.
Yeah. Yes. So I have one friend who reads my books, and she said, "This is how I describe your dukes. They're massive and confused." What are they confused about? She's like, they're just confused about love and about.
I agree. I agree that.
Okay. So I was like, I'm gonna get a bumper sticker, massive and confused.
No, that should be on a T-shirt. Yeah, this definitely should be.
Absolutely. Especially with West in this book. And I love that red is so prominent on the cover because when you read the book, those of you watching, red is important because that is the color of a gown that West has made for Viola. And it's a wonderful scene when she finally wears the gown for him.
Thank you.
Nice.
And then like Eva, like your book, I think like I was like designing like the photos for my Instagram post, but then I think like if you extend it a little bit more, you see her shoe kind of like hang off of her foot or something, like it's a heel, and it's so cute. I was looking at it, I was like, whoa, her shoes are so cute, and this is so cute, and everything's just so cute. And I was just like, yeah. I also really like the blue. I like how both your books are like contrasting each other, and it's just like it's so nice on my shelves because it's like either like really nice blue or a really nice shade of red that just stands out. But Lenora, I also have a question. Like your name is in gold, like glossy, like beautiful. Like, did you have an input in that, or like they just threw it on there for you?
I think anyone who's read these old school romances, and you know, as growing up, we were reading the Johanna Lindsays and all those, you know, and they all had that gold foil, their names in gold foil, and it was just like, you know, as a newbie romance writer, that was my dream. To see my pseudonym in gold foil. Like, so every time I think maybe this is only the second book I've had the gold on. I think it was the first book and this one. And it just makes me like giddy.
It's so pretty. It's so pretty. Love it. Eva, you should do it too, if you can. Like,
okay, I'll put in a word. I'll be like, hey, how about a little bit of that embossed gold foil for me, please?
I was just on Goodreads and I saw A Rogue's Rules for Seduction, and it's purple, and it's like this beautiful purple too, and it's gonna look so nice with the series, orange, blue, and purple. Yes,
I'm very excited about it.
Yes, and then
although there's no holograms. Back in my day, we had holograms on the. There's like a little sticker. I can't remember. My husband's waving at me. Oh, thank you. He's waving at me through the window. He brought me some candy.
Oh, he's so cute.
Yeah. Anyway, he just got home from work, so he poked his head in the window and let me know.
So cute.
And he brandished a box of chocolates that his coworker.
Oh my God, so cute.
Yes, very exciting. So yeah, back in my day, we had these little. I can't remember which imprint had holograms on the cover, but I do remember those. Yeah, was it Zebra? Yeah.
Probably. I do eBay book shopping for vintage covers. Rachel probably does.
Oh yeah.
So we know. Yeah. But continue the hologram.
Well, anyway, just like when I got started, I started reading probably in the mid to late 80s. And so the clinch was obviously king or queen, as it were, at the time, with the hair and the horses. And then all those Amanda Quick step backs where they had scenes from the books in them and stuff like that. That was pretty, and and there's always a horse looking on, which I always enjoy. And
it's like Pegasus. It's just
so true.
What is
or a sword. There's probably a sword with a hilt.
Yes, something like that. I mean, I mean, like when I started reading, the breadth of settings was a little bit broader than it is, at least through traditional publishing right now. So it was like we would get a lot of those, broadsword clenching kind of books, which was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
I collect them, so I love it. Like, I love those books. Okay, so I guess one of the questions that I did have was for your new releases for Lenora and Eva, obviously, because me and Rachel didn't write a book, but what was the hardest scene to write in your book? And like, what was the scene that kind of you struggled with? Or was there any part of the book that you just really struggled with in writing? Or was it just easy peasy lemon squeezy?
Yeah. Lenora?
Maniacal laughter.
Yeah. Hysterical, desperate, maniacal laughter.
Yeah, I mean, this book just came into my mind and it sprang onto the page, and it was just like,
it was just easy.
It was magic.
Lenora, I think like we had a conversation last year and you told me that you have like a lot of writer friends and you guys do Zoom chats or like chats on phone calls to discuss the writing process, right? Like on your latest projects.
Well, so actually, sometimes Eva and I will do writing sprints together. So we'll be texting each other and we'll be like, okay, 25 minutes, we're going to do a writing sprint. And this is our goal, 1,500 words or whatever. And then we'll just and then we'll just be like, go, 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 and cheer each other on.
Yeah.
And it works. It helps to have
that,
companionship as you're writing. And also, like you're talking about what was difficult about writing the book, and there's always difficulties with writing a book. You don't know whether it's going to be the middle or the beginning or the end, or whether you didn't quite nail the character's backstory or whatever it is, but it's your friends that help get you through that, Yeah. And so just really quickly, what was difficult for me about this one is he has a fiance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a toughie.
Yeah.
That was a toughie.
Like, how am I going to get them out of this? He's engaged to another woman, and she's his employee in his house. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. That was tough.
I think I creatively got rid of that fiance. What do you think?
I was very worried, but
worried.
I think it played out really well. And specifically, the question that I had for you, Lenora, with writing this book is that for those of you watching, music plays a very big part of this book, and specifically how female composers weren't appreciated during their time. And as someone, the reason why my name is And Sings is because I'm an opera singer and voice teacher. And so I really appreciated, I kept thinking of Clara Schumann, because Schumann was a very big part of German art song, in college, studying that in college. And so what I'm wondering is, were you already doing that kind of research and then these characters came to your mind, or was it the other way around?
I think that I was raised by a pianist mother who was always a champion of female composers. She was always looking for works by women to perform, and she's a composer herself. So I grew up thinking about the sort of lost histories of female composers, just being raised by a musician and a pianist. So in my author's note in the book, I say, the inspiration for the character of Viola came from my mother and from numerous women musicians, composers, and conductors whose works have been overlooked, forgotten, or attributed to men. So Fanny Mendelssohn, Clara Schumann, Louise Farrenc. There was a great New York Times article recently about Louise Farrenc, who was a French composer and conductor and music teacher who has been completely overlooked by history, but whose works and whose oeuvre is now having a renaissance. So that's amazing. Then there's Teresa Carreño and Chiquinha Gonzaga. There's just female composers all over the world who've been sort of overlooked or forgotten. So I was super into researching that. So much fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that West was the one to push Viola to really get her name out there. And obviously in this time in history, that wasn't to be done. Of course, most of these composers were writing under a male pseudonym or something like that. And so for him to just be endlessly supportive of her with that, it made me so happy.
I think Eva knows a thing or two about supportive heroes.
Yeah.
I have a very hard time writing heroes who aren't. I often, for me, one of the most romantic things, as is evidenced in my own relationship, is that having a very supportive partner is is extremely important. And I don't necessarily want the conflict to come from the other main character sort of being the obstacle in that regard, because I feel I think Lenora and I, because we write these historical settings, it's society is the obstacle in a way that the love interest, I don't really want them to be the obstacle in terms of ambition, and breaking out of societal expectations and molds as to what women could and couldn't do.
Absolutely. And as much as I loved Kieran in Good Girls Guide to Rakes, I loved Finn even more. I don't even know how you did it, but I love Finn with my whole heart.
It was amazing. It was
Thank
so
you.
sweet.
Thank you very much.
I loved it.
Thank you.
So Rachel, do you have a question, or should I just keep going with my questions?
You can keep going with your questions for now.
Okay, so what was your favorite part to write in your new releases? Now that we know, what was the hardest part to write?
Well, for me, I really liked how Finn and Tabitha, how they express their love languages for each other and how they show their support for each other. So in Finn's case, he keeps giving Tabitha libraries, and in Tabitha's instance, it's kind of understanding the things that Finn needs emotionally because he has what we would now call a learning disability. He did not receive a lot of support from people. In fact, he was actively abused because of it. So for her to sort of recognize and support him through this process, and also sort of coming to help him with his self-esteem through her own belief in him, that was something that I really enjoyed. And this book was super hot, and so I really enjoyed. I like writing the love scenes, and I especially like writing love scenes that don't take place in a bed. So I'm coming up with new and inventive ways to sort of get these two. Oh God, now I have no, expressing those pants feelings. Then that was fun for me to do.
Yeah.
I remember.
What about you? Scenes. What's that?
I remember those scenes, and I just remember. Okay, so I'm listening to audiobooks when I'm working. Don't tell my boss. But like, I just remember going like, "It's so cute," as I was like listening to your audiobook, because it was just so freaking cute every time. The libraries and the books, and then like your heroes supporting the heroine, and it's just so adorable. But, yeah.
And then kind of like Lenora was saying, one of the things I like to do is I like to find interests or professions that I don't really have a lot of experience with. So I've written like a herpetologist, I've written a newspaper publisher, I've written somebody who I like to sort of have the heroines in very specific professions that I don't know a lot about. So Tabitha is an intellectual, and she does a lot of work with philosophers. And so it was really fun for me to research not just philosophy, but specifically to research philosophy that falls outside of Western canonical thought. So I got to research all kinds of female philosophers, or philosophers who weren't necessarily white men, who didn't come from Western Europe. And that was really enjoyable for me. It was a deep dive. I don't know how much of it I retained, but at the time, it was really fun to write about and learn about.
Yes, and now I'm remembering more and more, because I read your book last week, so I'm like, yes, all the things that I loved. And one of those, of course, is like kind of this opposites thing, where like Tabitha is like an intellectual, she's a philosopher. Then we have Finn, who truly believes that he is stupid because he has what we now know is a learning disability, and so because of that, he never feels like he'll be worthy of her. And of course, that just guts me as a reader, like. And it was just like a wonderful like matching up of these two seemingly opposite people. It was just, I love their romance so much.
I think Lenora and I, we both like having that sort of expression where somebody can be seen, where people recognize each other. And that's kind of like that sort of really deep communion between these two individuals, seemingly oppositional. But then I think that's something that it's very romantic for me to step outside of what a family thinks, what society thinks, what people around you think, and have somebody actually recognize who you are, and then and that's the person that they're drawn to and they support.
Absolutely.
I love those moments in BBC productions of Jane Austen movies where they're on a dance floor, or they're at a ball, and suddenly all the other dancers blur and fade away to nothing, and it's just those two people in the room. And I think it's kind of like that feeling that we're trying to capture,
right?
Where it's not just like you're the only person in the world, it's like you're the only person in the world who really sees me, who understands me, who gets me.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that absolutely happens in Duke Most Wicked as well. We have West, who truly believes that he's tainted and broken, and again, that just guts me.
Yay!
And we have Viola, who's also kind of the opposite of him. It's interesting, kind of the similarities between the two of your books.
Yeah,
that's why we're friends.
Yeah, exactly. The most fun part about writing this book was, if you've read, so this is the third book. So that was Eva's second book in her series. This is my third book in the series. So it's the final book in the trilogy.
The final book. Okay.
And Viola Beaton has actually appeared in 5 other books previously to this. So she was in the last series, which was The School for Dukes, and she was in both first 2 books of this series. And readers have sort of been writing to me and being like, when does Viola get her book? So I was really excited because she's always been like a very supportive friend to her friends. She's always been there for them. She's been the one whose shoulder they cried on. And she's always just been a supporting character. So this is her chance to become the main character in her own life, in her own story, and to kind of take ownership of like, you know, no, maybe I'm not just a supporting character. I'm not just the person who props up my father, who's a famous composer. I'm not just the person who's always there for my friends. Actually, I'm going to have a starring role in my own life, you know, for the first time.
I think that's something that a lot of us can relate to, because I know there were passages in this where she says something along the lines of, I don't feel like the main character in my life, in my story. And that's very relatable to a lot of readers, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to go back to this comment from Christy. Where it's like true. I was listening to an audiobook, caught me off guard. I was just like, what's happening? Why is this so sad and so angsty? And I was like,
ready.
Oh, I was like, this is just the prologue. Like,
I know. I was like, oh, wow.
I was like, damn, like we're going straight into like everything. Like our hero is dark. Like,
yeah. Well, I think I have to give West some depth, because on the surface, he has also been in the last 5 books. And he has just been, like, I think I said before in another interview, that he has been sort of the comic relief. And one of the reviewers called him just hilariously slutty. And I was like, nailed it, because he was just like an archetype. He was your typical clueless, rakish rogue who just was always gambling and having fun. And, you know, so I was like, okay, how can I make him a little more sympathetic and give him some depth, and so we can kind of understand why he's developed this really thick skin and this big, you know, big high walls around his emotions and all that stuff. So that prologue just kind of, now I am going to say that prologue did just come to me. It just came to me and it flowed from my pen. And we love it when that happens, don't we, Eva?
We really do.
It makes the job a lot easier.
Doesn't happen often, but when it does, we're just like, ride the lightning.
Yeah.
I think you, like Eva, you talked a lot about like researching for your books, and I'm sure, like, I know Lenora does it a lot too, and I think that's why I love both of your books so much, because every time I pick up one of your books, like Lenora and Eva, like I just know a lot of research has been done to craft, to craft the story. Like there's just more to it. Like I don't know how to explain it, Rachel. It's just like there's just so much more. Then like
it definitely adds a layer to the storytelling, knowing that like so much has been put into it. And now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that's one of the reasons why we all love historical romance so much, is especially like nowadays, I feel like most historical romance authors, they put a lot of research into it, obviously because we don't live in that time period. But I always love those stories where, like, let's say the hero or the heroine has like a specific occupation, and so you can tell that the author put a lot of research into that. And yeah, that definitely adds a layer to the storytelling.
Right.
It makes the characters definitely more interesting, and it makes it very enjoyable to read about like these characters that just have so many sides to them. Yeah,
right. I think we see that like in Diana Quincy's books and Beverly Jenkins' books. I mean, Beverly Jenkins' books are like this. Just like I learn so much every time I pick up one of her books, and they're also fantastic. And Joanna Shoup, it's like you know, like people are putting the work in to make sure that they're conveying corners of history that perhaps because of certain sort of pedagogical practices we don't get to learn about. It's like, so this is kind of a way to illuminate that and bring it forward and in a way that, you know, is really impactful, because there's so much emotion also associated with behind these stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a wonderful point. Yeah.
Yeah, so this one that I read recently taught me all about the history of rum. Yeah, this one was amazing. This is by Adriana Herrera. It's an Caribbean heiress in Paris. Highly recommended. Yeah. Because talk about the research, she put that in. He's a Scottish hero making whiskey, and she is from the Caribbean and she's making rum. So you've got all of this, and then it's set in this glittering setting in Paris at this exhibition where they're kind of like fighting over the same table. And, you know, it's just a beautiful, beautiful book, but you're swept away to a familiar place, to some of us, Paris, and then with unfamiliar things and historical details being added and layered in. So I just, fantastic book. Yeah, you should. Have you guys read that one?
I haven't, no, but I've heard pretty good things about it. But
run, don't walk. I mean, it's so good.
I'm looking at the reviews on Goodreads, and all my friends have read it, so I must.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay, well, all my friends, including Rachel, because she's my friend too, but me and her didn't read it. But all my friends
haven't read it.
We have
well,
the
when you
mutual
start
friends.
your historical romance book club, you have to have her as your first guest.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Oh, wait, we never talked to Rachel and I never planned it, but like, author.
We haven't talked like much at all about the book club.
Yeah, we didn't plan it at all. Oh, by the way, anybody who's watching right now, this is a book club that Rachel and I started, but it was just not planned well. So
we don't even have a name.
We don't have a name. Okay. Guess what? We have celebrities as our first line. So, okay, we got Eva, we got Lenora. We did it. Okay. We did it. We secured the guesses.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We didn't secure any books, any details, any names, but we got the guesses. Okay.
I know, but now we have an idea for the November book.
Yes, and then now we have another idea that we can always ask authors to join our shows. Wow. Lenora giving us ideas.
Ideas.
Okay.
Well,
so
and Rachel you have to have a theme song, and Rachel has to sing it.
Yeah.
I've never heard Rachel sing before. Like, I need to hear her sing.
Could it be to the tune of the original Star Trek theme?
What?
Could it be to the tune of the original Star Trek theme?
I mean, we could do something like that because
I can't
composer. So
I can't really sing, but it'd be like romance, historical romance.
It'll be a jingle.
Totally going here. No historical romance book club has gone before.
That's exactly.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it.
Everybody's just having a great time. Okay, at least everybody's laughing with us.
Or they're laughing at my singing.
Or laughing at us, you know?
Yeah, they're not laughing at us. We got it together, guys. We got it together.
Right.
Okay. Rachel, I think you have some questions too as well.
My big question, I got to interview Joanna Shoup some months back with Jess on her channel from Peace Love Books. And I love this question, so I'm going to ask like any historical romance author I can. But what do the two of you, Lenora and Eva, want to see from the historical romance genre in the future? Whether that be like certain time periods that you would like to see highlighted, certain locations, or just any kind of like representation that you feel hasn't been seen yet.
Well, we were talking earlier about when I started reading historical romance, and there definitely was a breadth of settings at that time, time periods as well as locations. Two of my absolute favorite historical romances one is called Bliss, and one is called Dance, and they were written by Judy Cuevas, aka Judith Ivory, and they were both set in turn of the century France at the dawn of filmmaking. So one of the heroines in that is a filmmaker. So that was really fascinating. So I would love to see, not Western settings. I would love to see time periods that maybe are like branching out. Georgian is my absolute favorite period, but like let's open it up as wide, as we possibly can. And just personally, I would love to see as much representation in terms of voices that have been systemically excluded from publishing, and I really want to see more of that. As far as people telling their own stories, I want to see, Adriana's historical and Beverly Jenkins historical, and Cat Sebastian, and I just want to see more people telling their own stories so to me that just sort of makes the world such a bigger, broader, more beautiful place. And I'm hoping that that publishing is aware of the fact that this is something that needs to be a consistent and ongoing project that they need to do.
Yeah, well said, Eva. I love that, like, Julia Quinn and Shonda right, how do you pronounce her last name?
Rhimes.
Are collaborating on the, like, prequel to Bridgerton with Queen Charlotte's backstory. And is that going to come out in books as well as the Netflix series? I think they are writing books for it. Like,
you're closer to Julia Quinn than us, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that she is they're actually writing a book together.
Ooh.
And I think that that's super cool. I love this idea of collaborating and of authors collaborating and telling stories that are sort of retelling history in a way, but in some cases reimagining history, but also in some cases bringing out those stories that have been lost because they weren't the mainstream, you know, narrative of the time. So like I will always, any show that I'm on, I will totally cheerlead for Vanessa Riley.
Oh yes.
Because she is so amazing. And she's just so prolific, and she's writing in so many different genres right now. So this is Regency historical, but she's also now doing Victorian detective mystery stories. Wow. She's doing women's fiction, and absolutely, I want to see more authors like Vanessa Riley telling their own stories and telling the lost stories of history. Absolutely. And also this one of my very
that's an amazing
book. This book, I don't think she's writing historical romance anymore. I mean, I loved her thriller that she wrote.
Yes.
This was kind of a groundbreaking book, a groundbreaking series. And can we get more of that, please?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I, Alexis Hall wrote A Lady for a Duke, which was just a phenomenal book. And JJ McAvoy, sorry, I said Alyssa's name. Aphrodite and the Duke. I just let's see this. I want people telling their own stories. I think that it's just it's so great to bring happily ever afters into the world that insists, there's this narrative that it's not possible to have happily ever after if you're not part of like the mainstream, and it's obviously not true. So I want to see as much of that expressed in indie and especially traditional publishing, so we can get as much distribution out there into the world as possible.
Yeah. So Lisa, I know Lisa's your description of yourself is like Remarkably Lisa, and you want to see more diversity in publishing, right? So this is really important to you, right?
Oh yes, 100%, because I love historical romance, and that's one of my main things that I guess I build a brand for myself on YouTube, is just to talk about historical romances and do recommendations. But to be honest, I feel like I've only known 2 authors that wrote Asian Asian characters in historical romance, and I'm like, did I even exist back then? Was my did my culture exist, or did it not? And then it just for a period of time it just kind of I was just kind of accepting it, but then now I'm kind of no, I'm back. I feel like I need to be more represented in media and in books. So I want to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I read The Duke Who Didn't by Courtney Milan, I was blown away because we have 2 Asian main characters, and it was
that was the book that I read. Yes,
so good. And it's yes, we need to see more of that. And my next question to Lenora and Eva would be, why do you think the publishing industry seems to be so I feel like they're just kind of stuck in Regency London, and I feel like that's not just because of Bridgerton. I feel like this has been a thing, but why? Yeah, why do you think that is?
I just feel like it's like the Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice was set. Jane Austen was writing her books within the Regency era. She was in the Regency era writing her books, and she was observing what she saw. And she was very subversive in that way because she was an author in that time period when women were just expected to be homemakers, basically. So the Regency era and Jane Austen just has this perennial appeal. So it went from Jane Austen, then it went to, oh my God, what's her name?
Georgette Heyer.
Yeah, and then after that, we've seen this progression, and now we're just finally getting to the Regency era being portrayed, more diverse characters being portrayed in the Regency era. But we're still sort of stuck within that narrow confine. I think it's because probably they think that's what readers will buy. It's probably a market, you know, like it's probably all about money, but it's also about the perennial popularity of Jane Austen, I think. I don't know. That's just
I feel like it's like what we're used to. Maybe they're thinking it's like what we're used to and we're scared
like
to kind of go off.
Or something. I don't know.
Yeah, comfort. It's like something we know, we're familiar with. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like as my husband, who's also a romance author and an author, his name is Nico Rosso, and he's described it as Planet Regency, and not in a derogatory way, but like it's like you live on Planet Regency and you know the rules. So you go there and it's sort of like set and established, and it's good and it's comforting and it's comfortable, and that also means that there's room to go beyond its borders. And so I think because of things like the BBC, which have presented to us this notion of historical accuracy that is uniformly white and heterosexual and Christian, we believe that that's what history really was, and it's obviously a construct. So it's like exploding that is something that I think is rewarding. But I think because traditional publishing is ruled by their pocketbooks, they're so afraid that they're going to lose money. I think that, and also because they want to perpetuate white supremacy, so they just kind of throttle back on anything that sort of challenges that notion. Lenora's like, oh my God, every time I go on a conversation, I have a chat with Eva, she's just like, what?
It's so true, though. It's so true. Absolutely.
Have you guys ever got pushback from from the publisher on something that you wanted to write? Like, I guess
was there like a specific story, or
was there like ever where they were just like, no, we don't want this.
No, we don't want that. Yeah.
That's not going to be what the mainstream people are going to enjoy.
Like, I know that Joanna Shoup said that, like, I don't know that she ever went to Avon with this, but she said that she would love to write a romance with the heroine being a baseball player in the Gilded Age. And she's like, but I don't think Avon's ever going to buy that. You know?
Well, I mean, I would buy that.
I want that. I told her that. I was like, please write it like as indie or something. Like,
yeah.
You know, because I know Joanna Shoup has like baseball in her life, in her actual life. So I'm like, and they always say write about what you know. So I feel like she would probably be able to really do that justice, and probably be an amazing, amazing story. I think probably I received some pushback if like the professions or the things that I chose were not sexy enough. Like there was something, I can't really remember what profession I wanted to give the heroine, but it just wasn't like, they were like, yeah, that's not really sexy. Yeah. That's like, you know, it's just kind of, you know, and I don't remember what it was. I'm trying to remember, but I know you had a herpetologist, right?
I did have a herpetologist, and I purposely picked something that wasn't fluffy because I wanted to give the heroine, it wasn't going to be botany, which is one of the more acceptable realms for women to go into, scientifically speaking.
Yes.
And so I thought herpetology, which was a developing field at the time, it's like, you know, and she even says in that book where she talks about everybody thinks that reptiles and lizards and things don't have emotions because they don't show them the same way that we think that they're supposed to. But it's like they're just as, you know, they have the same feelings that we do. They subvert expectations.
I would read that.
That book is that's My Fake Rake, which is the first book of the Union of the Rakes series. I wanted to write, I was going to do a follow-up to the Union of the Rake series where I was going to do a lot of 80s television inspired things, which included things like Moonlighting and Magnum PI and Remington Steele. But I think they kind of wanted to get more away from sort of those mystery-based kinds of things. And so they were like, let's try something else, which led me to The Last Chance Scoundrels. So I'm not mad about that, but I was like, I kind of would have, you know, Remington Steele, Pierce Brosnan was like my first crush, so it would have been pretty rad to write that series. But you know, that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
It's
and
definitely
Eva, I know that you write indie things. I mean, I'm thinking of just recently, you're about to come out with Villain I'd Like to F, like that, that whole anthology. Lenora, do you also write indie at all?
Well, I just recently dipped my toes into the waters with an anthology that was in support of the conflict in the Ukraine, and all of the proceeds of that. It was called Sunflower Season. It's not actually for sale anymore on Amazon because it was a limited release, and but it was a lot of fun. I wrote an original short story, Duke Most Dangerous, for it, and it was kind of fun to try to confine yourself to a shorter. Like try to do a whole story, emotional story arc in like a third of the length, and I had never done that before. I think you've done that before several times, right, Eva? I mean, it's pretty intense. You really have
very challenging.
Yeah, it's very challenging.
Yeah, because this Villain I'd Like to F is the third in the series, which started with Duke I'd Like to F, Rake I'd Like to F, and now Villain I'd Like to F. And like I have it's kind of like cutting a gem because you have to be precise. It doesn't have the same sort of sprawling canvas that you have with a novel. So you have to really get everything across as quickly as you possibly can, but with as much intensity of emotion as you possibly can. That's not easy to do in a short amount of time.
It's a lot easier if they knew each other before the story. Starts or something, which is what I did. It's kind of a cop out in a way. But have you ever done one where they didn't know each other? They just met?
Let me think. I think in Rake I'd Like to F, they didn't know each other. But in Duke I'd Like to F, and then in Villain I'd Like to F, they do know each other. So it definitely helps because then you kind of okay, whew, we got that out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like writing a novella could be stressful in that way of how do I still tell how do I pack a lot of story into this without packing too much, and the pacing and all of that. I mean, I personally love novellas, so it's interesting to hear both of you talk about writing in that format.
And then sometimes people will be some readers will be like, oh, I wish it was longer, which is well, it's not because it can't be, but at the same time, good because you liked it. So
yeah. Right.
It's like a thanks.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like if you go to a restaurant and you're like, the food was terrible and the portions were really small. You're like, so wait, what did you, if the food was bad, did you want more of it? I don't know. So it's
right. Right.
Oh, that's a good one.
Rachel, I don't know how you got into reading romance.
I really started reading again for fun once I graduated from grad school in 2018. Then I was just watching, I just got randomly recommended a booktuber on my YouTube, homepage. And so I originally with reading YA fantasy. My jam in late 2018, YA fantasy, YA contemporaries, and just contemporary fiction or historical fiction, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I read in 2018 and absolutely adored it. And then I started getting into more romance booktubers. And there's a specific vlog where I was reading a bunch of romance books in the span of a week. And I was like, wait, I really love this. Why am I not reading more romance? And so from then on, I discovered my first historical romance, I believe was a Tessa Dare. And I was like, yeah, I need to get into this genre. What am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, historical romance is kind of what I built my channel on as well. And I love seeing, and maybe it is because of Bridgerton, but a lot of my historical romance videos are most viewed videos on my channel, which was very surprising because I didn't think that there was going to be the viewership for it, but it's nice to see that people love them as much as I do.
I was teaching a class, a summer class, a writing class that was about how romance can help improve writing, and reading romance can help improve your writing across the board. All the lessons that we can learn as writers from reading romance. And a lot of my students were not romance readers, and I assigned the Duchess deal, and it's like that's a converter if ever, like that will get everybody's on board when they read the Duchess deal.
That's still my favorite historical romance. I love that book so much. Yeah, that's a really amazing point of reading or writing romance, like, could improve your writing across the board. Like, Eva, were you not writing romance at first? Like, were you writing another genre and then you got into reading?
Well, I started writing when I was a little kid, and then and I was writing all kinds of things, and then including Duran Duran fan fiction, and then eventually a friend of mine got me into reading historical romance and just romance in general, but historical is my favorite. And as soon as that started, I started writing romance at the time, like in high school. And then eventually I went to grad school, and then while I was in grad school, I decided to leave my PhD program and pursue an MFA in fiction. And while I was there doing literary fiction, because this was kind of like a pretty snooty grad program, yeah, I was secretly also writing romance. So I was trying to do, I was kind of doing both, which is why I have pseudonyms, because I was trying to, I was publishing, also I was trying to get published under my real name, and it was mostly just a shelving issue. It wasn't like I don't write romance. That's not how I felt about it. It was more just keeping things straight. So I started writing romance, like I said, probably was around 15 or 16 years old. Tremendously terrible work, but I learned a lot about myself as a writer, even when I was in my grad program, because they wanted you to write short stories because that's what works best in a workshop format. But I learned about myself as I guess a novelist by writing a romance novel, and these are things that I just kind of learned by reading and doing. I don't know about you, Lenora. You also came from an academic background, like you have an MFA as well.
I do. It's not from as fancy of a program, but yeah, I went to Portland State University, and I was getting my master's in creative nonfiction. And so I was doing travel. I've been traveling since I graduated from college. I've been traveling, teaching English, and I was writing travel memoir. But I was the same as Eva. Like, I was in my grad program doing my nonfiction, but my heart was with the romance. I was reading romance. I was writing it when I got home. And it's coming up on November, which is National Novel Writing Month. Mm-hmm. You know about this? NaNoWriMo. Yeah. And I did that. And I did it and it was just so much fun to connect with people all over the world of all different ages, writing at the same time and trying to, something crazy, like, is it 50,000 words in a month? It's a lot. It's a big goal. But sometimes you really need a deadline to get you to produce something, and that was me. I really needed a deadline, and so NaNoWriMo really helped me. Like, I wrote this. Oh, awesome! So Monica says one of the participants says she always does NaNoWriMo. Awesome, good. Do it this year too. I'm gonna do it. I think
everybody probably agrees.
Fun.
I think that's writing in general, right?
Yeah,
that's really fun.
So on that same thought process, then I'm curious about your writing process in terms of do you tend to write multiple books at the same time? Are you just doing one book at a time? Like, how exactly does that work with let's say you had a book, just had a book, come out. So then is your next book already done? Like, how's that process work?
Well, I write linearly and sequentially, so I cannot do multiple things at the same time. I have to just finish a project and then move on to the next. have ADHD and attentive, and it's like that would just not work for me if I was like trying to do a bunch of things all at the same time. It would everything would suffer. So I try to just but I also turn around really, like, as soon as I'm finished with a project, I get to the next project, which isn't a great it's a good recipe to burn out, but that's basically how I operate. And I also, in terms of just my process, I always have an outline. So it goes like plotting, outline, synopsis, and then chapters, and then the hell that is revisions.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, Eva, you turn around books really quickly, because literally the first 2 books in your series is already out this whole year, and then
this series is 7 months apart.
Whoa!
Yeah. Yes, I know. It was like I just finished reading the first book, and the second book's already in my hands. Amazing. But
well, I didn't have this many. You know, my gray hair is increasing exponentially, so that's probably what accounts for it.
Yeah,
but we have to wait until like April.
Yes, unfortunately, the 3rd book comes out, but in April. But if you are on NetGalley, you can find it on NetGalley.
Get it, guys. Request now.
Request.
But when does the Villain I'd Like to F come out?
Oh, yes, thank you. Villain I'd Like to F comes out November 15th. So, so that's going to be great. It's going to be me, Adriana Herrera, Joanna Shoops, the incomparable Sierra Simone, the inimitable Nicola Davidson, all of us writing morally gray, if not even a darker hue heroes. And in my case, my story is 2 villains finding their HEA.
Yay! That sounds so good.
I feel like this is the moment for villain romance. Like I see a lot of people on Book Talk just saying they actually want the villain to be the hero or the heroine, you know. So I feel like I'm hoping, because I read the Duke I'd Like to F. I have not read Rake I'd Like to F yet, but I'm really looking forward to this one because I really want to see how you accomplish that. I think
well, shout out to my husband Nico Rosso, who came up with the concept. He was the one who thought of the villain and Like to F. So
supportive people.
Yes, exactly.
Supportive heroes.
Yes, exactly. And so that's coming out, and I also have in December I have a story in the best women's erotica of the year also. So yeah, it was a lot. I'm so tired. Everybody, I'm so very, very tired.
I know. Yeah, I have it pre-ordered too. I pre-ordered all the apologies.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We appreciate
copies, but I didn't read them yet. But I will read them after. Oh my god.
Yeah, I read Duke I'd Like to F, and so I've been saving Rake I'd Like to F, but I'm very, very excited for sure.
Well, Rake I'd Like to F is no longer available as an anthology. Most of the other authors have got their stories up, and at some point within the next few months, I'm going to get mine up, which is my first MFM romance. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as fast of a writer as Eva. I'm in awe of her productivity.
I don't go anywhere or do anything. But thank you.
I am slow. I'm just slow. But I'm also easily distracted by the next shiny idea. So I probably have like 20 or 30 books started in folders. So I feel like at some point, if I wanted to, I have probably like books that have about the first maybe 70 pages, but I have a ton of those. So I could like really quickly write the ending to it and have a ton of books to put out there. But is that ever going to happen? I don't know.
We got to get you even more, like, I know you're rural Alaska, but we got to put you even somewhere even further away, or maybe like a penthouse in Manhattan, and it's like everything you ever want is going to be brought to your door so that you can get these books finished.
That just gave me an idea for a new book.
Ooh.
There you go.
I'll take 15%.
But wouldn't that be like it'd be like the fantasy of a novelist would be like, okay, we're gonna give you a penthouse in New York and we're gonna give you everything you want, but you just have to finish like 10 books in a month or something.
and then it's like you cut to the author like lying on the floor, like looking at the ceiling, just sort of like groaning because
because the muse has deserted us. Yes. Oh my gosh. Speaking of, wait, the Sandman series. Have you been watching it? No.
I have not.
Totally random. Sorry. There was an episode about a muse and in the Sandman series, and it just made me think of that. Never mind.
I've heard good things about it, though. Yeah.
Very good.
I was also just thinking about like what you guys were saying about the penthouse situation where the author gets everything like delivered to their door and everything. But like that reminded me of the movie Stranger Than Fiction, where the author is writing the story of a character and her main goal is to finish and meet the deadline, or else because everybody's depending on her. I don't know if you guys watched the movie. It has Will Ferrell in it, and basically
I haven't seen that one yet.
No, I don't.
Yeah, basically it's the author writes a novel about a character, thinking that the character is a fictional character, but then it turns out that there's some magic in it, and then she's actually writing a story about a real life man who is Will Ferrell, who plays the real Will Ferrell, and then the author, anything that she writes, Will Ferrell's character will do.
Oh,
and then, yeah. But the sad part is it starts off with like the book starts off with this is the story of Harold Crick, I think is his name, and like this is how he dies. And then so he's like walking through life thinking that he's gonna die. But it's actually a very uplifting story. So like I don't know. I just thought about that.
I need to watch
very
that.
random again. Yeah, just very random.
We are puppet masters. We can make our characters do anything. And that's I think one of the really interesting and fun things about being an author is I'm like, okay, I've written 3/4 of this book, but it's not set in stone, and I can change it if I have to or need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody will know. Nobody will
know except my editor.
Nobody know what I did except for me. But Lenora, like
Right.
you know this. Like just because you write like one book a year, it still gets me very excited. Like I'm just waiting for it. It just sucks though because it's like always at the end of the year. So I'm like waiting for like January but then it's good because NetGalley usually has the arc up way early.
Yeah, way in advance.
Maybe I need to tell my partner to bring me more chocolate like Ava's does.
I mean, he can build stuff and all, but
Yeah, actually he's out there building a fireplace right now. So, I guess that I need warmth. I do. I need it's Alaska. I need a fireplace.
Wait, so Lenora, now I have a question. Was your hero in Love is a Rogue inspired by your partner then? Because he builds like the book he's a contractor, right?
Yeah, that was basically pretty much my life. It was a carpenter and a bookish lady, and she's like pissed off because he's hammering too loudly below her window. And yep, that was life or art imitating life.
Oh, that.
That's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we do have a question, and it's like, what series is next for Lenora since this series just wrapped up? I didn't know that this was the end of your series, but
yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. I never know when's the end of the series. Usually
I never know.
But then like sometimes it goes to book 4, 5, 6, so then we never know.
Yeah. Well, so my last series, this one was not a continuation of that series, but it had interrelated characters.
Yes, I noticed.
So I'm not saying you'll never see these characters again. I'm just saying this series was a 3-book arc, which is finished. But I actually, Christy, that's such a great question, but I can't talk about it yet.
Oh no.
Sorry. But I'll tell you what, Lisa and Rachel, you will be the first to know.
Yeah. I was like, well, and now that I'm thinking about it, Eva, in How the Wallflower Was Won, weren't there characters from the Union of the Rakes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a Eva Leigh cinematic universe where characters show up and stuff like that. And there's a setting, there's the Catton's Bakery, which is in like almost all of the books. And then also the Orchid Club, which is the masked sex club, as one has. that shows up, and then it changed into the Lily Club when the Orchid Club shut down. So some of these, and the characters show up. And yes, at the end of How the Wallflower was one in particular, you see a lot of characters from some of my other books show up. So that's always fun to have little cameos.
Do you like reread your books to like be? I don't know. Like, yeah. I feel like I would be confused about like the characters that I've written in the past, and then like incorporating them into new stories. Like, I don't know. Do you feel like you ever have to reread your books?
I don't try to reread the whole thing, but I don't remember everybody's names because I've written a lot, so it would be hard for me to remember everybody's names. And I've been doing that. It's funny because on my Instagram, I do on Fridays, I post fan casting. So I like to post like who I would cast in the role. And so I have to remember, I'm like, wait, what was his name again?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we have to keep really good spreadsheets, right? Like book Bibles.
We do?
Yeah, we do.
I guess we should. Huh.
Good tip.
Good idea.
Hi tip from Lenora Bell.
Well, you know, you have your book Bible with all the character names and ages and okay, so I use Scrivener. Writer. Come on, you're more organized than I am. Stop that.
I'm a Virgo, so it looks like I know what my shit is, but I actually am chaos. Go on, Lenora. You use Scrivener, please.
Yeah. So Scrivener is this great software for writers where it's all just like on the side. You can have your research, your scenes, your character descriptions, your timelines. It's all on the side so that you never lose it. You're writing in a window, but it's all here on the side. So you can actually move scenes around really easily instead of having to cut and paste. You just kind of like zip, zip, you know. So I love that software.
Oh, cool.
Any NaNoWriMo participants who are going to be writing with me in November, Scrivener is definitely a good one. I think it's less expensive than some of the other writing softwares out there.
Pro tip. And then there's this really interesting question from Monica. Have you thought about writing contemporary or a paranormal romance? So Lenora, I don't think you've ever written contemporary yet, but then you just, you like the idea of somebody delivering things to you. Do you think like you'll ever write a contemporary romance in New York City, Manhattan?
Definitely not in New York City. Well, oh, you mean I would physically?
Or
yes.
Like a
yes. Yeah. If someone put me in that penthouse in New York City and gave me everything I wanted, which is like wine and chocolate and roses, and yes, if all the conditions were right, and then they were like, all you have to do is write a contemporary romance series, I would do it. Oh yeah. But that wasn't really the question. No. So some of those books that I have on, half started are contemporary romances. I have several that I've started. I have one that is sort of set in Alaska. I wonder why.
Oh, it'll be so interesting to read contemporary from you.
All right. Well, I'll think about it.
I'll wait. I mean, I got my whole life ahead of me. I'll be waiting for your releases. Don't worry. I'll be here. You and Eva. Like, well, I'll be here. Don't worry. Just aging.
No, but Eva, Zoe Archer.
Yes.
Yeah. Back in the day when I was writing as Zoe Archer, I did write paranormals. They were historical paranormals. So I did,
good. So
thank you. Thank you so much. I did my Blades of the Rose series, which was kind of like, it has like the Mummy level of paranormal, kind of high adventure sort of things like that. And then I did steampunk also. That was really fun. And coming up, I am going to be writing under a new name. I'm going to be writing some monster romance. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So I guess it is paranormal in that regard. Contemporary, I've written actually in a completely different vein. I wrote under another name for Hallmark. I did an adaptation of one of their movies, and then I wrote a book which was turned into a movie. And then I wrote on my own under the same pen name. I wrote a very sweet kisses only holiday romance called Operation Holiday Matchmakers. So those are fun to write. It was interesting because I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to research every other line, but I still found ways to throw research in there. But it's really interesting. I would probably like to explore it more. But yeah, I am working on some paranormal right now, as a matter of fact.
Oh, that's so fun.
Okay. So is the monster romance going to be like indie published then?
Yes, I'm self-publishing it, so it'll be independently published. And I was going to have it come out this year, but some family emergency stuff came up, so I had to kind of put it on the back burner. But I'm trying to get back to it now. So I'm really hoping that the first book comes out next year.
Okay, and then I need to keep tabs on it because you just have so many amazing books. Like, how do I keep tabs? And you also have like a lot of websites too, because I
do. There's too much, and
it's because I'm looking for your websites. I know you like. I was.
Well, Zoe Archer is kind of like she's hibernating right now, and Eva Leigh is where you will find most of all my historical stuff, and then I will be building a website for my monster romance, and that pen name is Maya Silver.
Ooh.
Oh, okay, cool.
This is so exciting. You're going to have a spreadsheet just for your names.
Oh my God. It's ridiculous. There's like my real name. And then there's like, I will try to do an audiobook because I really love that. It just kind of depends on if we can get enough support for me to fund the audiobook, because it is indie published. That means it does have to kind of come out of pocket. But I would absolutely love to do that.
Yeah. Cool.
Everybody's so ready for the monster romance. I personally just got into monster romance and I love it. Yeah,
this one's gonna be it's very adventure-y. It's a lot of adventure with monsters, and it's going to be so dirty. So that's exciting.
Anything less from you? Come on.
Right. I mean, as I get older, my books just get like, I don't know if you're experiencing this, Lenora, but my books are getting hotter. I don't know what my problem is.
And we are here for it. Bring it on. Bring it on. Do it.
We are here for it. Like,
I don't know. This last book that I wrote only had like two bedroom scenes or something. I don't know why. Next one's gonna have more. I promise.
We're gonna make a little vow. We're gonna pinky swear that we're going to increase that.
Yeah, I feel like that was a good balance though for Duke Most Wicked. I find that like there's a vibe that every romance book has, and like for that vibe, there's just a perfect amount of sex scenes. Like, does that make sense? Like some romances, like this one, it totally made sense. Only like 2 scenes or so, and then for like How the Wallflower Was Won, it totally made sense that there were, I don't know how many there were in that. I lost count, but I
was working under the constraints for me was, okay, he's got a fiance.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the first half of the book. Now the second half of the book, she's still his employee.
Yeah.
There was just a lot of power dynamics going on in this book, so I just couldn't have them like being filthy all the time. I just couldn't do it. They had to be like, it had to be a slow burn, and it was actually probably my most slow burn of any romance I've written. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that challenge.
Yeah.
No, I agree with Rachel. It definitely made sense for your books to have like slow burn, and then it definitely made sense for Ava's books to be a little bit more fast paced and a little bit hotter, because I felt like it was more like kind of like a friends with benefits situation, but like not really, because it was marriage of convenience, but it was like so, and plus he was like an idiot and he didn't understand love, so he just like went for attraction first and he just dove in there, so it made total sense.
And yes, you're right. I guess, well, this is my last year in my 40s, Monica, so I better take advantage of it while I can.
Oh, yeah.
I got 1 year left.
That's so funny.
All right. Perfect. Do you have any more questions, Rachel? I'm trying to think of something too as well.
I feel like you had more questions than me, but I'm also just coming up with questions like off the cuff.
Okay.
Eva, do you have anything that you can reveal about your next series? I know Lenora can't speak about her.
Unfortunately, I can't speak about it either yet. So, but it's all a lot of stay tuned. But we will definitely, I will, as soon as I get the clearance, I will give everyone the news. So, yeah, but I'm excited about the third book in the series, which will be coming out April 25th, I think. This will be exciting because it in A Rogue's Rules for Seduction, it's Dom and Willa's story, if you're familiar with it. So the wedding that didn't happen, which started the whole series, and then we're going to have what happens to both of those characters in the third book. And that one's a bit of a slow burn, but when the restraints come off, so to speak, get ready.
Oh yeah, I mean,
or when the restraints go on.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been dying for a story, and in fact, like how the Wallflower was one at first. Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna love this as much because I want Dom's story, and then like, wow, I just loved Finn and Tabitha so much, and like the Marriage of Convenience, like one of my favorite. Yes, Dom. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you saw on my Instagram, I posted a little screenshot of the galleys, and literally the second sentence in the book has to do with Dom's thighs. So
his thighs.
I'm giving the people what they want.
Exactly. Supply and demand.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Okay, I guess that's a good segue into Monica's question. Like, do you write the smutty scenes first, or like do you just kind of go with it wherever the flow takes you? I guess.
I mean, we can't. I think I don't know what Ava's going to say, but I can't write the sex scenes until I know the characters so well that I know what it would mean to them, how they would react in the situation. You know, I really need to kind of psychoanalyze my characters for several months before I can put them in an intimate situation, because I don't know how they would, you know, because you learn a lot about another person during an intimate moment. Yeah. And if I don't know, then the characters won't know what they're finding out about each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I write sequentially, so I can't write out of sequence, and that has a lot to do with the way in which the characters come to know each other themselves and their relationship, you know, and the other person. And so the love scenes, sex scenes, they sort of happen because they've reached a particular point in their relationship with that other person, and it continues to grow and evolve. And in A Rogue's Rules for Seduction, I actually wound up, I wrote the whole manuscript, I turned it in, and then I was like, wait a minute, I think I need to add another one because it actually will explore certain aspects about who these characters are now. And I think, you know, and then my editor sent me lots of little sweaty guy fire emojis. So I knew that I had hit I'd done what I had intended to.
That's so awesome. But I think like in my books, in the beginning of the books, the characters will be fantasizing maybe about each other, or like the yearning. Like in Love is a Rogue, she's up there writing her dictionary up in her tower, and then there's the sweaty, shirtless carpenter down there building a pergola. And so she's already had all of these steamy scenes in her mind. So I can write those in the beginning because it's the character kind of fantasizing about what it would be like. And then when they actually come face to face with the sweaty carpenter in the library, then she's just like, I don't know what to say. You know,
very relatable.
Yeah. So, anyway, but it's just so fun to be here, you guys. Thank you so much for inviting us.
And thank you for joining.
It's so nice to hear that, you know, that historical romance, I feel like it needs to reach a wider audience, because I feel like people on Book Talk aren't really talking about historical as much as they are about other genres. And I think it's still relevant, and especially like what we were talking about with the more diverse stories being told, but also with Eva and with our books, trying to highlight lost histories and also all the research that goes into it. And just, I still love to inhabit these worlds, and I hope it can reach more readers too. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I think people's conception of what they like, readers' conception of what historical romance means in terms of its sort of stuffiness or its staidness or its lack of you know, spark and things like that. I think that definitely is something that, you know, by reading historical romance you can see that it's so much more than that, you know.
Of course. Of course. And I think it's just because like maybe the demographic on TikTok is just a little bit younger for now, but then give them a couple years and they'll be at your doors and they'll be reading your books. I'm serious. It's going to be like that.
Yeah. So
really quickly, can I ask Rachel and Lisa, can I ask you a question? What do you think about the new like Bridgerton covers with the more modern font versus like the clinch?
Oh, I like yours better.
Yeah, it makes me sad seeing like Beverly Jenkins' new cover. Like that was modeled after those new Bridgerton covers, and it makes me sad because it's like you don't see faces, which is weird, and I don't like those fonts. And like, I could go off, but
I know they all look the same.
Yeah,
you love a serif.
Like, I much prefer, like, a full clinch cover. I want to see facial expressions. I want, like, beautiful fonts. I
want legs.
You know, I mean, that's part of the escapism for me, historical romance. Like, I want to see that beauty reflected on the cover. So, yeah, it makes me sad. And, like, Lorraine Heath's newest book, like, I'm not in love with that because it's, like, yeah, it's, like, a very, like, modern font. And I think it's also just bodies. There's no faces. It's like very strange to me. Like, yeah.
Wait, Lorraine Heath has a new cover?
Her newest book, I don't know, released yet. It's a new series.
Oh no.
I know. But what makes me happy is like Joanna Shoup is still getting like gorgeous clinch covers. Like there are authors that are still getting the covers that we want to see. And I hope that never goes away completely.
Yeah. I hope they still give you guys like creative freedom in choosing what you want on your covers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Oh, the other edition? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
yep, the Lady Gets Lucky. That's like my favorite cover.
Wait, which one's the lady that gets lucky? Is it the purple?
That's the purple, the lavender.
Ooh, yes. The bed, right?
Yep.
And they're just lying on sheets and silk sheets with that. Yep. Very nice.
And all of her covers look like that for that series, and I'm just absolutely obsessed with it. It's beautiful.
Nice.
It's like artwork. Like I like looking at your covers and looking at all the small little details and things like that.
Oh yeah, that is.
I don't know if you guys read The Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert, but I love that cover too as well. It's just beautiful.
It is a beautiful cover. Yeah.
Yes. Nice. Okay, well, I think that is it for our live show. Our first official, unofficial live show to Rachel and Lisa's Historical Romance Book Club. Yes, if you guys are here late, this is a book club. We just never announced it yet. We don't have a name, but we got the celebrities.
Yes.
With the part 1. We just checked it off. We nailed it, guys. We nailed it.
Nailed it. Thank you so much to both of you, Lenora and Eva, for joining
it was
us.
so fun talking to you guys about your new books.
You.
I left everybody's links in the description box, and then all the links to buy your copy of Lenora's book and Ava's book is also in the description. Definitely go check it out and buy yourself a copy if you haven't read it yet.
Yes, highly recommend both of them. Yes, so good.
So good. And we'll be talking about it in our future videos, obviously, Rachel and I, in our separate videos. And then follow everybody in social media in the description down below too as well. All right. Well,
thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Rachel. And as always, it's a delight to be with Lenora. And also thank you to everyone who tuned in. I really appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to spend it with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so much fun. I just love books and laughing about books and talking about books. It's just an evening well spent. So thank you so much.
Yay. Okay. Well, we will have more information on our book club on Instagram and on our social media pages once we plan it all out. Yeah, once we find a name.
Star Trek theme song.
Yeah, Star Trek theme song is sung by Rachel.
Yeah, with a song sung by Rachel. It's a jingle. Yes. Tune in for her song. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Goodbye.